Some of our interns may not be familiar with the concept or the acronym of VUCA. VUCA stands for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. VUCA was coined some 40 years ago to describe the unpredictable economic and geopolitical environment that corporates and non-profits have been operating in. In today's even more VUCA environment, what tips do our panel have for young people here? Starting perhaps with Daniel. As a former CEO and board director of several biotech companies, having worked in big pharmas in the US and mainland China, before joining STP and then CUHK. Right, my question to you is, with the development of AI and robotic, how can young graduates better equip themselves to navigate the current job environment with challenges as well as opportunities?
Thank you, Ken, and good morning or good afternoon, everybody. So I'm Daniel, but this is a very difficult question on paper, but actually it's very easy. The number one thing is everybody is talking about AI, everybody is talking about robotics. Will it affect our students and our internship or our job opportunities? The answer is not yet. And especially if you are in the life science area, I personally do not believe that there will be any major impact, negative impact on your career in the next 3 to 5 years. But in the long term, as students or always as scientists, we should always embrace new technologies. If you look at AI and robotics as just tools, you are just equipped with additional tools to do whatever you are intending to do or wanting to do. So those will only be positive help, positive tools that would help you to achieve your goals rather than impeding your goals. With AI, yes, there will be some jobs that will be lost. I went through the .com stages, internet. When I was a student, there was no computer. There was typewriter. Typewriter disappeared today, right? In those days, we have typists. Today, there is no such job function. There will be some changes, but will it affect how we read or write and design and present? It only makes us easier. So for AI and robotics, embrace it as tools and you will be fine. I also want to share 2 short stories, very short stories. The first time when we discussed about ChatGPT or AI in education was about 2 Januaries ago when ChatGPT first hit the market. And in the universities, we were worried. We actually had 2 meetings to decide what to do. As a university, what should we do? And it came down to a very simple statement. We are going to embrace it, period. So that would be my suggestion to you all. The second story to share with you, and those are more for entrepreneurs. In the 90s, the .com industry was booming. I was associated with a company, well, I worked for J&J at that time, and we were associated with a small biotech called Insight Pharmaceuticals. What it does was, it just gathered all the DNA sequence data at that time. The stock price was about $4 US, and it rose to over $100. Then it dropped back to $1. Our CEO, J&J CEO, his name was Bob Wilson. He was asked, "Dad, look at what all these .com people are, or companies are having in the rise, right, when they were going up. J&J stock price, always like that. It was around $50 at that time, and it remained like that for at least 10 years. Today, it's around 150 with many spreads." And I remember what Bob said at that time. came back to me with the same question 10 years afterwards. From the 90s into the turn of the century, a lot of .com actually disappeared. So for those who are into entrepreneurship and investment, watch out. But for those who are working and utilizing technologies, embrace it. That's all.
Thank you, Daniel. We'll be able to come back to him later on if colleagues or students have any questions. But now let's move to Anderson, right? A graduate from Princeton and Harvard, and as the president of the Hong Kong Young Academy of Science and a biomedical engineering researcher in Hong Kong U. Could you provide some examples of coping mechanism for young researchers to manage stress and job uncertainty?
So thank you, Ken, again for the invitation and the opportunity to speak here. Indeed, I think stress and uncertainties are what we face with every day, especially in the research world. So I have to admit that I don't have a magic solution or mechanisms to this. But what I usually do when I was a researcher working in the lab, and now when I talk to my student, is it's the most important thing is to set sight into the final goal. Because I think the other day I was talking with one of my students. I think if we focus too much on the way, how to get there, rather than focusing on the destination, we may make lots of short-term correct decision, but don't get to where we want to be. So the analogy that I was using with my student a few days ago was, if you keep trying to find the right elevator, you may always take the right elevator, but somehow there could be a change in the route, and you always get the right escalator, elevator, but then you never get to the goal. But then if you know very well where you want to be, sometimes you may make mistakes about which elevators, which path to turn, which escalator to take, but you will get there. And the journey will be exciting. You will learn a lot of new things. And so I guess my suggestion would be, for those of you who are in the research world, whether you are working in academic laboratory or in startups, in companies, be agile, know your final goal, know where you want to be, and try to navigate and enjoy and learn the process. There will be stresses, so I'm not going to lie and say that there will not be stresses, there will not be moments that you're about to break down. But when you are in those moments, you find helps. First, you have a lot of mentors, you have a lot of great researchers, you have a lot of people who have walked this path, such as those who are also here. Especially if you're an intern in this program, it's a great opportunity for you to find people to share what you are faced with, because I'm sure many of your mentors, probably all of them, have faced those moments, so they can share with you what happened when they faced those moments. And besides that, always go back to remember your goal, why you started out doing this, where you want to be. I think an analogy for for my wife and a lot of people is because when my baby son was born, my wife actually went through 2 very painful periods. Originally, she was supposed to be giving birth by natural birth, but later on, because of some complications, she had to change to C-section. So it was a very long and painful process. If you focus on the process itself, it's terrible. You don't want to go through it. But if you focus on what is to come, which is the baby, then you will have the hope, you'll have the energy to go through this. And when you think back, you only remember the happy moments. So enjoy that and get on with it, and it'll be great.
Thank you, Anderson, for sharing his personal story. We're lucky enough to have today 2 associate vice presidents, one from Chinese University, one from Hong Kong U, to be here. Now we shift a little bit to Lisa. Lisa is my colleague in Nan Fung Life Sciences. Is a healthcare investment director. who previously worked in hedge funds and a Chinese sovereign fund. What are the tips for young graduates to build an entry-level career in investment amidst this very volatile and competitive environment?
Well, first, Ken, thank you for the opportunity to be here and on with this panel, and thank you, Professor Lee and Professor Shum, for the advice already offered. That's definitely a question we get a lot from young graduates here. Like, I really want this job in, whether healthcare investments or certain positions. How do I get there? I would say a couple of things. The first one is be flexible about your path, because a lot of times young people are very focused on, I want that particular position, but in reality, you don't even know what the job really does most of the time. And what you should focus on instead of, getting to a certain title, a certain position, is what skill set are you building in your job, right? Let's say you want to be an investment professional eventually. Now, there are a lot of different skill sets that would make an investment professional a great investment professional, whether it be it financial analysis skills, actual statistical analysis skills, or even just, people skill in some talking to companies, talking to customers, talking to potential peers in the industry when you do a development. Or even things like, I remember I actually had a mentor a couple years back asking, I got this offer as a tax accountant, but, I really want to be in healthcare investing eventually. I don't think this is relevant at all. And I asked him, do you realize every large multinational pharmaceutical company have a very large tax department? Because that is a major consideration in their business development and in their financial planning. And he did not realize that, right? So just understand that whether in business and in investment, because essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to see value in a business before other people see it. And there's so many facets in that there are different skill sets that you can develop, whether you go into, investment banking, consulting, whether you go into industry, whether you're in research, whether you go into something completely different. Let's say, you get a master's in fine arts, right, to nurture creativity. There are different paths to get there. So I would say keep your goal in mind, but be very flexible about your path. The second thing is, as mentioned, always try to learn something new, right? Let's say even you are already at your dream job doing the positions. Well, the industry, the world changes very quickly. So a couple years back, no one used all these AI tools that we now have today that we use on a daily basis. Don't be the last person to learn how to use things, and try to be the first person, right? Try to be curious and try to really nurture your creativity and your problem-solving skills. When you're doing something on a daily basis, is there a more efficient way to do those things? Is there a more fun way to do those things, right? Try to think of how I can do something better every day. What new skill set can I develop? And I think that's something that, as a young graduate, you can really spend some time thinking. And lastly, I would say is really a lesson that, after being some years in industry, that I have learned myself, and, I think it's a really good analogy for life as well, which is when you're doing biotech investing, even the best investors will have huge losses in their portfolio. Even the best biotech investors will have positions that go down 70 to 90% overnight because a drug failed a pivotal trial in, a very crucial development or indication. And what you're trying to do, and those oftentimes cannot be foreseen or cannot be predicted. What you're really trying to do is invest in your winners. If you have a winner that makes 3 times, 5 times, 10 times in your portfolio, you can actually withstand a lot of those losses. And I think that analogy really applies to life as well, because oftentimes in life, you cannot control your losses, right? You certainly cannot control the time period, the location, the country you're born into. You cannot control geopolitical risk. You cannot control natural disasters. You cannot even control things like, someone losing their job, a friend or family gets sick, or even just very small things like a little fender bender, a little car accident, right? You break your ankle. You cannot control any of those things, but you can invest and nurture the winners in your life. What are some of the winners in life, right? Your health, your relationship with your friends and families and loved ones, your own skill set, right? Your sense of resilience and persistence, your character, your industry knowledge. Doesn't have to be the industry you're working in. It can be something completely random. Can be, that's just, I always love the industry. Like, can be your industry about 19th century, fine arts. It can be something completely random. But you don't know when you're going through a very difficult period. Those are the things that will carry you through, and oftentimes in unexpected ways. So find the winners in your life, invest in them, nurturing them, and try to ride your winners. And that's really the last piece that I can offer to our young graduates. So thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. I guess today we've learned a lot from the three speakers, in particular about controlling or limiting your risk, while at the same time you take reasonable risk. At the same time, managing a portfolio of your priorities, families, networking, building a good hobby, as well as developing new skills. I guess we still have a couple of minutes to take 2-3 questions. I was told we got 5 minutes, but we'll be able to take 2 or 3 questions from the floor.
Hi, thanks for the very nice panel for today. Really learned a lot from the experiences. Just as an intern, I have a question in mind, like the internship is starting very soon. You guys are really experienced in your field particularly, and I love the history about the dot-com bubbles and like the coming AI bubbles things. So throughout the days, what do you think that is the good start as an intern to develop our career? Any advice to us?
I remember he is a PhD student at Hong Kong U. Perhaps we'll start with Anderson and then Daniel.
Sure. So that's a great question. I think turns out we also start to have a lot of interns in our laboratory in the center today. We had a lot of new interns as well. My advice to you all would be bring in your questions, bring in your curiosity, bring in your energy to the researchers, to the more experienced students, postdocs, or even professors, because your energy, what you wish to do, may inspire them. Summer is a very exciting period for me in the lab because we have a lot of interns. I was an intern myself starting after my high school. My first internship experience after high school was to Technion in Israel, and I spent a summer there. I asked lots of questions that I think now I wouldn't ask, but I think those were all the right questions that got me inspired. For example, maybe you look at a process, the process is very tedious, you ask why you don't automate it, or the question seems very tedious, very routine, you may ask why we don't use AI to address them. I mean, these days I think different generations of students with availability of different technologies, they may ask different questions, and many of those questions, sometimes, trust me, your supervisors may not disagree, but he may not want to tell you that, oh, I'm not familiar with this technology enough to integrate it into our research. But you can do that, asking these questions, listening to the answer. Don't necessarily accept the answer as they are, but this may be a direction that you would like to pursue in future. So keep your energy, remember your curiosity, and also try and inspire others. So those are what I would suggest you to do.
Daniel, you got any supplement?
Well, I'll just supplement with very similar principles as what Anderson has provided. I also started an intern at Hong Kong U, actually in Queen Mary Hospital. I still remember, and I believe I would challenge all these students here. How many of you have actually touched DNA? We're doing molecular biology all the time, but I challenge this because that was my first experiment. I was given a task to get DNA from human placenta. And that was the first time I actually worked in a formal laboratory and handling human tissues. But at the very last step, after you brand everything, you pour in alcohol. And at the interface, you use a glass rod. These are technologies from the 50s. And I was working then in the 70s. I'm very old. You turn that around, and there is a term we call spool, S-P-O-O-L. As you turn the glass rod, stirring, the DNA will appear like a textile fiber. It's almost like a cocoon. And when you lift up the glass rod, there will be a spool of DNA, sticky material. And when I first saw that, I said, wow, this is the material that made me, myself. That's the genetic material that composed of, that actually constructed me, although it's from somebody else. So I think the internship opportunity actually changed my entire career from then on. I actually spent 15 years at Queen Mary Hospital in that same lab afterwards. And then I went into molecular pathology for my entire career. So I hope all of you who are lucky enough to move to Shanghai, to visit Shanghai and WUCA, to really capitalize on this opportunity to see things and broaden your horizon. Shanghai is a very fun place. I spent 7 years there working in Shanghai, in Pudong. But go to WUCA. I mean, you watch the television series. It's absolutely a fantastic place. But more importantly, learn from what you have there that not necessarily we have in Hong Kong. So as intern, I actually envy you. Grab that opportunity and make full use of it. Think really carefully about what you want to do for the rest of your life. Not necessarily just for the career, as Lisa has put it. Okay?
We are actually visiting a number of companies in WUCA as well, including AstraZeneca iCampus, that you'll be able to see a lot of these startup companies as well as medical, surgical device company as well. For your information, Daniel, we were actually running a kids workshops on extracting fruit DNA. But for parents and primary school students here at the Muse some time ago, we'll be able to take one more questions from the floor. Seize the opportunity. Oh yeah, we got a lady.
Thank you for the sharing. I was just wondering if you would recommend young people like us at our early stage of career to launch a startup right away, or like say that to gain some experience at some established corporation first. So what are the risks and rewards of each choices?
That's a great question. So as Ken mentioned, I previously worked at the Chinese Sovereign Wealth Fund, which is one of the largest asset managers in the world. And I also worked at a startup hedge fund. So I can speak to a little bit of differences about working in these different organizations. I would say a couple of things. You know, when you're in a large organization, oftentimes they perhaps do have better training for entry level, especially graduates. But, you know, you're going into a very regimented place where, you know, each level have very specific responsibilities and opportunities. Versus at a startup place, you really don't have any of those larger institutional constraints, and you're really free to do a lot of different things. But the trade-off is, you know, for example, when a printer breaks, you're the one to fix it. As to, you know, which one is the better opportunity for a younger graduate, you know, frankly, I don't think anyone here can answer that for you. It's really something for you to decide. But I think at your stage, the great thing is you have one thing that's fantastic, which is your ability to fail. Because at your age, nothing matters really, right? I mean, it's you're really in it for the experience, and you're really in it to learn the skill set, to develop the skill set. So whatever you go into, try to find the opportunity to challenge yourself. You can fail in a startup. You can also fail in a large organization. So people think that, oh, startup is so risky, and then they go into a large, you know, let's say a pension fund, whatnot. Well, what if that pension fund changes their strategy and decides, you know, for example, just to cut the entire Hong Kong team, which we actually have seen in the past couple months for, you know, pension fund in certain countries, right? So don't think any place is necessarily more or less risky than the other. What you should focus on is, what can I learn at this place? Who can I meet? Who do I work with? Right? Those are important. And don't think about, I mean, honestly, don't think about how much money you're going to make, because, you know, at your stage, that should not be a consideration. You're at your stage, you should really think about, you know, where is a place I can learn the most, that I can challenge myself the most. And I might even say, you know, pick the place that you're actually a little bit less comfortable with. Because if you're less comfortable, maybe it's telling you that maybe you're not so good at something that you have to do at that place. And that's actually a great opportunity for you to learn. So that's how I would think about it.
So thank you very much. Since we're running out of time, let's give a round of applause to our three speakers. Thank you.